Hey everybody. Back when I got into the hobby for the first time, it came from being a model builder when I was a kid. And when I say models, I mean traditional airplanes, tanks, cars, pretty much anything that I could get my hands on I would build because I just liked all kinds of different things. And the problem was when I got finished, I would be depressed because there was nothing I could do with the models when I was done. So they would sit on the shelf and they would collect dust. And, you know, they might get broken when they got moved around, whatever. But it was always sort of depressing because I wanted there to be more. And so later on, when I discovered, first role-playing games, and of course you had to have a miniature for your character when you're playing a role-playing game, but also later when I discovered miniatures games, I was able to sort of transfer that hobby from just model building into miniatures and models specifically for gaming. And that's great and has continued to be great. Obviously, I keep doing it now. And when I started in this hobby, this particular hobby in 1978, it's kind of a long time. But one of the things I've run into is again, when I got started in building models, I like to do pretty much everything. I would specialize at certain times. You know, I might do tanks for a long time, and then I might do planes for a long time. But I would never limit myself to any particular thing. And so when you get into a game that has a line of miniatures to go with it, you're kind of stuck painting those miniatures for as long as you're going to be continuing with that game. And that has affected my gaming part of the hobby because I get bored with things. And so I might want to hop to a different army, and that's not always the easiest thing to do, which is another reason why, you know, I've sort of leaned towards skirmish games more recently. But even so, you're always limited to the game, the miniatures for the game that you're playing. Until I discovered what I like to call miniature agnostic games. Games like Song of Blade and Hero, Frostgrave, Rogue Stars, any of those games that don't require a specific line of miniatures. And usually the setting is generic enough that you can take stuff that you already have and apply it to that game. But where's the fun in that? Now I'm coming to a point here. And the point is this, is that there are a lot of companies out there that do miniatures, but don't do a game to go with it. So, and I spend a lot of time looking at their websites and thinking, wouldn't it be great if I had a reason to get these minis and do something with them? And more often than not, I just sigh and move on to something else. But as I get more and more into miniature agnostic games, I find more and more excuses to buy those minis. And recently, I'd found myself perusing the website of Hasslefree minis in an attempt to find a warband for Rogue Stars. And I came up with some great minis. And I thought, you know, I really love their stuff. And perhaps I would like to share that with the people who watch these videos. And the truth is, I feel like, especially for the UK companies, the little UK miniatures companies, and there are a lot of them, they don't get a lot of attention here in the US. And I think it's primarily because people feel a little weird about ordering, you know, mail ordering from boutique companies in the UK, and the shipping's going to be expensive and it's going to take forever, and it's not necessarily the case. And so I just thought I'd share my experiences and my thoughts on the minis, and, you know, maybe I would encourage some of you to take a closer look at those miniatures. So, with that in mind, let's take a look at Hasslefree miniatures from the United Kingdom. All right, so let's just take a look at the miniatures that sort of inspired this thought here, which was that I wanted to talk about Hasslefree. On the far left there, you've got what they refer to as Chipster. I've been calling Rex Dogman Space Marine. I don't know what I'll call him when I get around to using him, but I just thought it was funny. But this is the team that I picked up, and as you can see, it's a diverse little crew, and I think it represents well the things that I like about these minis. And let's talk about that. What I really like is that they have well-defined details, realistic proportions, without being overly realistic. They still have some room for some style. And a lot of character to them. And I think that really goes into their whole range. And I believe the majority, if not all of their minis, are sculpted by Kev White, who is a longtime sculptor in the industry, and he's done stuff for other companies. And I believe he may have even worked with Games Workshop in the past, but don't quote me on that. Don't know it for sure. But the thing is, this is the style of mini that I love. I like things that have very defined details, that have really good proportions. Everything is very clear as to what it is, but also there's not just too much going on. If I had one serious complaint, GW minis in general, it is that they have a tendency to really go overboard and just sort of put everything in the kitchen sink on their minis, with the exception of the Lord of the Rings line. The Lord of the Rings line is closer to what I like. It's like what needs to be there and not much else, with detail that is clean and crisp and otherwise just spot on. The other thing I like about their range is that they do a lot of stuff, a lot of different things. Now, this is both a blessing and a curse. You can go to their site and you can spend an hour looking around at all the various things. And they do things like kids. They have miniatures of kids. Nobody does that. Okay, I shouldn't say nobody does that, but you almost never see that. But not only do you have miniatures of kids, but you have miniatures of kids who are clearly involved. You know, they're going on adventures as well. It's not just the grown-ups. And one of the things I like about this group is that I feel like I've got a sort of variety of ages going on. I believe these two here on the outside are quote-unquote the adults. We've got a precocious teen. We've got two kids, and what I'm assuming is a something like a self-aware teddy bear, like genetically manipulated. And same thing with the dog here. It's some sort of human-animal hybrid. And you know, you have a range of things represented, a range of genders and ages and even races. And I'm not just talking human and alien, but they do represent a lot of different things with their minis, and I love that. They do, but and the downside of that though is that there's not always the breadth that you might like to see. You know, they do kids, but there's not a ton of them. It's not like you can find a kid for every occasion. There's some other ranges, like they have a really cool set of female bridge crew, not bridge crew, well, yeah, I guess starship crew might be another way to put it, that very Star Trek like original Star Trek, but it's only females, and there's only, you know, like a handful of them. There's not like something, you know, if it was all females and pretty much the range of races and possible occupations that they could portray, I'd be all right with that. But really, it's this handful, as if the sculptor went, this will be fun. I'll just do a few of these, and then moved on and didn't do anything else. And maybe they didn't sell. I don't know. But I would buy any of them if there was more. But since there's only a few, I can't really find a good excuse to use them for anything. So, that's my complaint there. These aren't the only Hasslefree minis I own. And I don't know where my other ones are at the moment. But they have a group of minis that are very much inspired by the SG1, Stargate SG1 crew that I love very much. I have my only other completed mini. Oh no, that's not true. I have two, and I will show you pictures. One is very much inspired by Captain Hammer from Dr. Horrible. And then I have another one of the kids. This is just a child with a rock. And I added some of the other stuff there. Oh, and speaking of that, this kid here does not come with a robot hand that he's jumping over. I added that. And I'm not entirely sure where that comes from. But that might be extra Hulkbuster bits, in case you're wondering. So, there's a fair amount of of minis that are very similar to this or very similar to that. And so, that's always fun. But they do fantasy, they do sci-fi of various stripes, and it's well worth looking at. And, these guys have always been, miniatures that I just spend time looking at online. And now that I've found ways to justify my picking them up and painting them, I'm going to continue to do so. And you'll be seeing me, I'll probably be doing some more, at least photos of the finished pieces, like old Rex Dogman here. But perhaps I'll be doing some videos of these minis in process. But for the most part, this is just as they come. I did make a special base for Rex there because he was just a little bit too big for a 25mm base. And of course, the Hulkbuster hand for that little dude over there. Otherwise, this is it. This is pretty much how they come. And they are really cool. But I highly encourage you to check out their website. I will have a link in the description of the video. And I hope you found this useful and or interesting, because I think they're well worth taking a look at, and I think you should find ways to incorporate them into your gaming as well. But that's going to do it for now. Just a short one. Thanks for watching, and I will talk to you all later. Bye.